Okay, I don't know if it's clear from the background, but there's an insane thunderstorm outside and it's raining like crazy. But I will not let Mother Nature bully me out of making this video. These are the top 5 books that absolutely annoyed me, to be honest with you. I don't want to use the word hate, it's a bit too strong, but it's definitely not like I dislike these books. These 5, I've disliked them with the exception of maybe the last 2, like number 5 and 4. I'm okay with. That's because I read good books this year, so I don't regret it. But like, there are 3 books within this list that absolutely boil my blood, and let's get into it. So, number 5. Now, I am going to lose half my subscriber count because of this, but this I'm going to have to say is Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Now, what did I break? Now, hear me out. I gave this book a 4 out of 5, and it's still going to be on this list. The writing is so good that it detracts away from how horrible of a protagonist this person is. So Kvothe, which horrible name by the way for a protagonist, the more I think about it, the more it pisses me off. But the main reason why this book has dropped so much for me is that this character is such a Mary Sue character. He doesn't fail a single time. He's always right. He's proving the adults wrong. He has a very annoying attitude to him. And only now, after being away, being detached from the great writing for a couple of months, and me thinking about the book, I've realized I hate this character. I just don't like him. He's annoying. And it almost shows how much of a good writer Patrick Rothfuss is, that he was able to convince me that all of this was fine because he's such a good writer. And then me stepping away from it for a couple of months, it really dropped a lot for me, to be honest with you. Please, Kingkiller Chronicle fans, do not kill me, do not dox me. I apologize. I don't think I will be able to continue with the series though, to be honest, because boils my blood. Number 4, another book that I don't hate, The Last House on Needless to Read by Catriona Ward. This book had the potential of being pretty good, but it really dunks itself in a pool of acid where it finally reveals the final ending and what it was and but it finally reveals its hand of cards at the end. Is one of those endings where it's like, oh, it was all a dream. No, this is not that. This is not the ending here. It wasn't all a dream. But it definitely pulls off an ending very similar to that, where you're like, I feel so tricked. I feel so manipulated. This is so dramatic. People, please, writers, stop doing this. Especially with characters that have mental illness. Just stop doing this. The mental illness here is not written well, in my opinion. That's just my subjective opinion. Beside that, she's a good writer. There were moments in this book that were extremely clever, and you know what? Great for that moments. But there were moments that were really mind-blowing when you figure out what the secret, what the ending is, what the secret of everything is. But it's a horrible ending. I'm so disappointed because it has such a cool name, such a cool cover, glowing reviews, but I was really let down. Now we're gonna get into the territory of me really disliking these books, and I'm not gonna use the word hate, except for maybe one of them, but let me get into number 3. Number 3 has to be The Gunslinger. Told me that I'm going to pick up a book by Stephen King and not fall in love with it, I would have told you you're crazy. Stephen King, one of my favorite writers of all time. The Gunslinger was a nightmare to read, and it's so short, which was crazy. I mean, The Gunslinger really feels like a prologue that has no clear beginning, has no clear end. It feels like Stephen King just took some acid or, I don't know, some mushrooms or some type of mixture of every type of drug, and then just sat down and wrote this. The first 100 pages is good. Everything after that is an absolute confusing mess of a nightmare. I have no idea what happened throughout the whole book, especially those last couple of hundred pages where I'm like, what in the world is even happening? What is the plot? Where are we? Who's talking? Who's this person? What's happening? It's just an absolute mess and such a painful experience. And I've never said that for a Stephen King book. But this one was just an absolute nightmare to read. I'm so disappointed because I really wanted to love this. I mean, you're talking about cowboys in, I don't know, in a weird sci-fi metaverse type world with a Western. I mean, it sounds so cool and I wanted to love it. But if this was the first book, I do not want to continue with the series because just no. Number 2, another book that's gonna make me lose subscribers probably is Call of the Wild by Jack London. This is a classic. People read this in schools. People love this book. I am so confused because the best way I could describe this book is that it has not aged very well. It's quite boring, mind-numbingly boring so, and I don't know how you can make a book boring where all it's doing is talking about doggies and dogs. I love dogs. I love nature. There are so many parts of the book where it's like low-key animal abuse, and I'm pretty surprised they kind of make kids read this in school, but hey, I don't know. A lot of people told me this is one of their favorite books of all time. I was like, I just did not vibe with it. It's so dry, nothing's descriptive. I'm like, I don't want to do this. This is one of those classic books that have not aged well at all, in my opinion. And whatever, I might try another one of his books. I don't know yet, but I don't want to put myself through that torture again. And the book that takes the honorable award of being the worst book of the year so far, this is only the first 5 months of the year, has to be Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. I do not care what anybody says. I don't care how people are in love and obsessed with the series. This has probably the most unlikable protagonist I have ever met. It's just a full stop. I think in all of books, this is the most unlikable, annoying, obnoxious character ever. The start is fine. It starts just fine. But you already detach from these people, these group of women who go in, mainly because they don't address each other by normal human names. They try to address each other by their profession. So it's the biologist, the chemist, the anthropologist, the sociologist. It feels so, you're trying really hard to be dystopian fantasy. This book is really Lovecraftian, done horribly. This book is a headache. I mean, the first 100 pages, you kind of know what's happening. You kind of get it. There's some interesting mysteries that get planted, but none of those seeds that the writer plants goes anywhere. None of it has any point, because after the first 100 pages or 200, I don't remember, after the first 100 pages, the writing turns into this rant, long form speaking that is so obnoxious and annoying, and it's very similar to The Gunslinger in that form. It's like the writer just took acid and went into the mind of this extremely unlikable character and somehow managed to make her even more extremely unlikable, as if we needed more of that. Obnoxious, leads nowhere, it just ends and nothing happens. We learn nothing. We barely learn. I don't know. I'm not going to continue with the series just to see what happens, but we literally learn nothing. And no, I'm sorry. I know this channel is called The Wholesome Bookworm, but you guys have to let me at least 2 times a year make a video where I rant on how much I dislike certain books, and this is going to be one of them. I'm not going to be this negative all the time. Just thank you so much for taking your time and watching this here with me. Have a good one.